Okay, today we are naming covalent compounds. So this is really formulaic and actually quite simple. So the first step is that you're going to be I'm only going to give you compounds with two elements in them. So for the first element listed in the compound, you apply a prefix to the element. And which prefix do you use? That is based off of what subscript number you have to the right of the symbol. So if C for carbon has a subscript of 2 immediately after it, that means that you are going to use the prefix for 2, which is di. So your example would be dicarbon. The next thing is you move over to the second element. So the second element, same thing, okay? So you use the prefix for the subscript that is right after the letter. So if H, the chemical symbol for hydrogen, has a 6 immediately after it, that means that we're going to use the prefix that applies to 6, which is hexa. So right now, we would currently have dicarbon hexahydrogen, except the last part of hydrogen is not going to be rhogen. That's going to be a different suffix. That's the final thing you got to do for a covalent compound. Now, one key distinction between the first and the second element. If you have one, so let's say BH3, actually let's do CH4, okay? There is no subscript after C. So what that means is that you would have one of that. For the first element only, you don't usually include mono, but if you do include it, it's not the end of the world. So you could say, you can do either or. You can say carbon, and since there's 4 hydrogens, that would be tetra. Or you could say monocarbon. It doesn't matter, but for the first element, you can usually omit the first prefix, which is mono. All other prefixes, though, if it's di, meaning 2 and up, that's going to be included no matter what. Okay. Now, the last step of the name is you change the suffix of the second element only. So if our example is C2H6, that would be dicarbon. We said our prefix for H is going to be hexa, so that would be hexa, and then stop. Hydrogen has a different suffix, okay? So what would happen is the last part of hydrogen changes from rhogen to ide, okay? So instead it would be hydride. So your final name is dicarbon hexahydride. Some of these words are a little awkward when you change the suffix, so I've included this key to help you. And then let's go ahead and do an example. So we have done this one already. So all you're doing for these is you're bonding them, you're classifying them as polar or nonpolar, and you're going to do the name right here. Let's go ahead and do something different. So let's do, say, CI4. Okay, so carbon and iodide. So we have carbon and iodide. I'm just going to do the name for this one. So carbon is going to have no subscript right after it, so that means there's 1. So it's up to you. You can say monocarbon or carbon. I'm going to say carbon. Then our subscript after iodine is 4. So we find the prefix for 4, which is tetra. And then we have iodine as our second element, so then we go plug it into the key, and we find out what iodine would become. So instead of iodine, it's iodide. So we write iodide. That's it. That's all you got to do for naming. Email me if you have any questions.